In the time before the iron bird flew across the skies, before maps carved up our rivers and kings became footnotes in foreign tongues, there was a whisper carried by the wind, a sacred tale, the tale of a lion born of prophecy. I am but the keeper of that wind. I am the oracle of the Kalambe, born when the stars were still young and the baobab tree first drank from the deep wells of Ma Ngala's breath. I have walked the red earth of every age. I've seen kingdoms rise like the morning sun and fall like forgotten names on broken stone. Come close, child of the diaspora. Do you hear the drums? They are not just music, they are memory. Memory of a people who did not worship trees or beasts as strangers claimed, but who saw the spirit of creation in all things. We believed in Ma Ngala, the one who watches through the stars, whose power breathes through Nyama, the sacred force in word and deed. Our griots were not mere singers, they were guardians of divine truth. And this tale is their fire passed to you? But ask yourself, why would kings fear a child who could not walk? Why would an empire tremble at the sound of his name? You are about to witness the unfolding of fate forged by the hands of ancestors. Watch closely, for the Lion of Mali walks again, and when the last word is spoken, let your spirit remember. And if your soul hungers to know more, to dive deeper into the wisdom that shaped our empires and spiritual legacy, then follow the river of knowledge. The sacred book we've placed in the description flows from this same source. Drink from it.
Before the first dawn kissed the earth, before the rivers carved their paths through the land, there was only the endless silence, a vast, boundless emptiness where time itself did not exist. From this eternal void, a single breath stirred, slow, powerful, infinite. This breath was Ma Ngala, the great creator, the one who is beyond form, beyond flesh and bone, neither man nor woman, yet the source of all life, all spirit. Ma Ngala spoke without words. From that sacred breath came the first heartbeat of the world, the birth of the sky, the rise of the sun, the dance of the stars. The earth answered with the mighty baobab, its roots deep as the ancestors' memory. The lion's roar echoed Ma Ngala's power. The drum's rhythm carried the pulse of creation. To the Malinka people, Ma Ngala is not a distant god, but the living essence woven into every leaf, every stone, every soul. As the griots sing, Ma Ngala is the fire that warms before the flame, the water that flows before the river. It is from this sacred breath that the story of a child destined to reshape the world would be born. A child born under shadow and promise, under the watchful eyes of gods and ancestors. The land of Mande breathed beneath a heavy sky, a thick cloak of twilight wrapping the earth in silence. The baobabs stood like ancient sentinels, their gnarled roots gripping secrets of 1,000 generations. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and the faint whisper of distant drums. In the village of Niani, where the red clay met the roots of great trees, a woman named Sogolon moved quietly at the edge of the forest. Her skin, dark as fertile soil, glistened faintly beneath the fading light. She carried the weight of a promise, not just for herself, but for all her people. Sogolon was known among the griots as the Buffalo Woman, a name woven from tales of strength and mystery. Her eyes held the calm fire of one who has seen visions, a fire kindled by Ma Ngala's breath and fed by the ancestors' whispers. She was the vessel chosen to birth a son, whose footsteps would echo through the mountains and valleys, a lion destined to roar louder than any before. When Sundiata came into the world, the village fell into a hush, as if the land itself waited to hear the first sound of his spirit. But the child's body was frail, his legs stiff and unbending, like young branches caught in the grip of winter frost. Mothers hushed their children. Elders frowned in worry, for strength was a gift much needed in these times. Yet, beneath Sundiata's stillness burned a fire unseen, a fierce ember glowing in the silence of his limbs. his eyes deep and bright, held the fierce courage of the lion, waiting patiently for the moment to awaken. The griots, keepers of memory and voice, sang low and clear in the gathering twilight. From the silent boy comes the thunder's roar, from the crippled lamb the lion's paw. He who walks with Ma Nangala's light will break the shadows, conquer the night. Sogolon, wrapped in the woven cloth of her ancestors, cradled Sundiata close, her heart a steady drum of hope and defiance. She knew the path ahead would be carved through trials, exile, war, and shadow. But she also knew that destiny was not a gift granted. It was a fire to be kindled and forged. Around them, the village stirred like a sleeping giant, the slow beat of the drum echoing beneath the stars, a rhythm calling forth the awakening of a kingdom. The seasons turned like the endless circle of the sun, and the land of Mande watched as Sundiata grew, slowly, surely, like a seed pushing through stubborn earth. Though his legs had refused to bend at birth, his spirit remained unbroken. In the quiet corners of Niani, beneath the towering baobabs, the boy began to move, awkward and uncertain at first, like a newborn gazelle testing the ground, but every faltering step carried the weight of a destiny whispered by the winds. Sogolon watched with a mother's fierce love, guiding him with patient hands and ancient prayers. She called upon Maangala, the great creator, asking for strength to flow through her son's limbs and courage to blaze within his heart. But far beyond the village, in the darkened forests and the courts of power, a darker force was rising. Sumaoro Kante, the sorcerer king of Soso. Cloaked in mystery and wielding magic feared by all, Sumaoro's eyes burned with hunger and a thirst for domination. The griots told of Sumaoro's terrible power, a man who commanded spirits and shadows, whose iron fist crushed kingdoms and whose curses twisted the very earth. His reign was marked by fear and fire, his armies spreading like a storm across Mande. Yet even Sumaoro knew of the prophecy, the lion who would rise from weakness, who would shatter the chains of darkness and restore balance to the land. As Sundiata took his first true steps, the clash between light and shadow drew nearer. The land held its breath once more, caught in the silent drumbeat of a destiny that could not be denied. The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Ancient Malinka. Proverb morning broke over Niani with a golden hush, the sun spilling across the hills like the blessings of Maangala. Smoke curled lazily from cooking fires, and the village stirred with quiet purpose. But in a hidden grove just beyond the market's reach, a different fire was being kindled, one within the young boy who would become king. Sundiata knelt beneath the sacred tree of learning, his hands wrapped in leather, his brow damp with effort. Before him stood Balafaseke, his griot and guide, chosen by prophecy, shaped by wisdom. Balafaseke, calm but firm. Strength is not in the arm, Sundiata, but in the spirit. Even a lion cub must learn to listen before he roars. Sundiata, now 10, nodded slowly. His legs, once lifeless, now stood firm. His back was straight, his eyes sharp, his silence deep. With each lesson, of war, of history, of the tongues of kings, he grew into more than a boy. He became a vessel of purpose. Sogolon, softly from behind a woven veil. Your walk may have been delayed, my son, but now your footsteps thunder like a storm. The spirits of our bloodline rejoice. The wind stirred the trees, and in their rustling Bala heard the ancestors whisper, Bala Faseke, chanting. Ma Nangala breathes through the just and speaks through the mouth of the griot. The lion does not rush his roar. He waits, he watches, then strikes with truth. But while Sundiata trained in silence, the west burned. Sumaoro Kante, king of Soso, sorcerer of shadows, sat upon a throne of bone and iron. His gaze turned east, toward the lands of Mande. He rode not only with armies, but with spirits, bound to his will by dark rites long forgotten by men of honor. In one night, 9 villages fell. He took griots and broke their tongues. He desecrated shrines to Ma'angala, replacing them with iron idols. He drank the fear of kings like palm wine and turned their sons into slaves. Sumaoro Kante, in a low, dangerous voice. Let them whisper of their lion. When he roars, I will silence him with my silence. The earth belongs to the hand that clenches the hardest. The land trembled beneath his march, and the drums of resistance beat louder across the kingdoms. The griots began to sing again, quietly, but with fire in their chests. Even in shadow the lion watches. Even in silence, the lion plans. The tree does not move unless there is wind. Malinka proverb. The drums of war echoed through Niani like distant thunder. Smoke curled over the horizon, not from hearths, but from burning homes. Sumaoro's shadow had finally reached the borders of Sundiata's home. The elders met beneath the sacred tree. Fear sat with them like an unwelcome guest, and in the center of the circle the lion child stood, no longer frail but unproven, too young for war, too old to hide. Elder one, gruff, torn. The child cannot lead an army. Elder two, quietly. And yet no warrior inspires them like he does. Sogolon, rising. He is the son of prophecy, and prophecy does not bow to age. But Sumaoro's forces were too many, his power too dark. With heavy hearts and burning pride, the council agreed. The lion must go into exile, to return when the time of the roaring came. And so, by moonlight, Sundiata left the only home he knew. With his mother, his sister Kolonkan, and his griot Balafasake, he crossed rivers and forests, deserts and villages. He bore not a sword, but the weight of destiny on his back. Exile is the fire that tempers the blade. In the land of Mema he found refuge, and there his training became warcraft. Balafasake, narrating as griot. In the lands of strangers, the lion learned to hunt. He studied their ways, earned their trust, and when they saw his heart, they gave him warriors not out of duty but out of faith. Meanwhile, across Mande, rebellion stirred. Young men vanished into the forests and returned with bows. Women sang war chants as they worked the fields. Elders whispered the name Sundiata with renewed hope. Sumaoro, seated in his iron fortress, heard the tremors in his bones. Sumaoro Kante, to his spirit familiars. They gather around a name. I will make that name Ash. You can kill a man, but not a story. The fire of exile had become a forge, and within it, the lion's roar began to rise.
No matter how far the river runs, it never forgets its source. Malinka proverb night fell heavy over the land of Mande, but the stars burned brighter than they had in years. Whispers stirred in the shadows. He has returned. From the west he came, cloaked not in silk, but in the dust of exile, his eyes set like flame, his back broad with the strength of kingdoms. Sundiata stood atop the ridge of his homeland. Below lay Niani, wounded but unbroken. The wind shifted. It carried memories of his mother's tears, of the baobab tree, of his first step taken with pain and promise. Sogolon, appearing in a dream, her voice layered with ancestral echoes. The lion you were born to be now walks the path of fire. Go, my son, walk it without fear. The land remembers. In Mema, he had become a warrior. In exile, a strategist. But now, standing on the red soil of home, he became a leader. Beside him, Balafasake, griot of fire and memory. Kolonkan, shield sister and silent blade. Warriors from Mema and Ghana. Hunters from the forests of Sibi. Riders from the edge of Songhai. They did not follow his crown. They followed his calling. Balafasake, chanting with fire. Mande, hear me. The lion has returned with thunder in his step. Sumaoro's iron shall crack, for the ancestors have woken. Torches lit across villages. Elders emerged from shadows. Women ululated, children sang, and the griots beat their drums louder than ever before. But Sumaoro watched from his dark citadel, eyes gleaming like obsidian. Sumaoro Kante, muttering to his spirits, "Let them dance. Let them sing. A lion walks into my storm. He will leave as dust." And yet, as the armies began to gather, banners rising like the wings of vultures and eagles alike, one thing became clear. Sundiata was no longer returning to reclaim his home. He was returning to reclaim his people. The lion walks not for revenge, but for restoration. The rain had not touched Mande in 3 weeks. The earth cracked like forgotten scrolls, dry and whispering. But above the hills of Niani, a sound deeper than thunder rolled through the valley. The sound of the djembe calling nations to rise. Sundiata stood beneath the baobab tree where his ancestors once made oaths by firelight. His cloak, dyed deep with indigo and iron, moved gently in the wind. Around his neck hung the tooth of the lion he killed in exile, and at his side, the griot Bala Faseke tightened the skin of the war drum with deliberate hands. "This is not a drum for dancing," Bala murmured. "This drum is for reminding." Sundiata nodded. His eyes were already looking east, toward kingdoms that had long bowed to fear. 3 days later, the Lion Prince entered the kingdom of Do, homeland of his mother Sogolon, where the women still chanted her name in reverent whispers. The elders were gathered in the Council of Trees, a sacred circle surrounded by ancestral carvings. The chief elder, Mansa Bakari, narrowed his eyes at Sundiata. "You come not as a son of Do," he said, "but as a caller of war. Why should we bleed again for a land that no longer calls us kin?" Sundiata stepped forward, unwrapping a cloth from his belt. Within it lay a blackened seed, old and cracked. "This," he said, "is the seed of the great baobab. You say Mande forgot you, but the soil of Mande is dry because your roots were never returned. Help me plant this, and our children will sit in its shade." A silence fell. Then a woman stepped forward. Elder Jaria, keeper of chants. She touched the seed and whispered, "He speaks like Sogolon, and her spirit walks with him. Let the drums of dew sound." And they did. By moonrise, Sundiata and his riders crossed into Tabon, land of hunters and raincallers. The forests here whispered old names. From the shadows emerged Komori, the blind hunter who trained Sundiata in the sacred ways during exile. Komori knelt and kissed the earth. "I heard the trees call your name. I told them he will come when the earth can no longer carry the silence." Sundiata embraced him. "I need your archers," he said. Komori pointed toward the hills. Shadows moved among the trees. Hundreds of warriors dressed in leaves, faces painted like spirits of the wind. "They are yours," Komori said, "but they do not follow iron. They follow purpose." Sundiata raised his staff and cried out, "Then follow this. We do not ride for revenge. We ride for return. The Mande will not be ruled by fear, but by memory, and by the unity of those who remember." But while drums awakened old allies, shadows stirred in Sumaoro's citadel in Soso. From his throne of skulls, the sorcerer king stared into the fire as it twisted into the form of a lion. His eyes did not blink. He reached for a clay jar, uncorked it, and released a whisper, a serpent-shaped spirit hissing toward the south. "Let him gather," Sumaoro said. "Let him dream of unity. The more roots a tree grows, the louder it burns when I set it ablaze." And behind him, the bones of Mande kings rattled in their cages.
"Ah, you still walk with me. Good. For only the seeker who does not stray shall find the deeper waters of truth. But I must now offer you a sacred key. The tale I weave is only a shadow of what has been etched in the bones of time. If your spirit yearns to hold the fuller truth, the whole telling of Sundiata, the lion of Mali, then go now to the place marked in the scroll beneath this vision. The description. There, you shall find the words of Jibril Tamsir Nian, the honored griot who captured this fire of memory in ink. Sundiata, an epic of old Mali. Not merely a book, child of the sun, but a relic of our people's spirit, preserved across centuries. And should you wish to hear the griots speak to you with their own thunder, the audible scroll awaits you too, carried by the winds of Amazon's marketplace. With but one whisper of a click, it can be yours. Do not let this flame pass your fingers. The griots remember, but only those who listen may truly reclaim the path. Seek it in the description below.
As night fell, Sundiata stood beside a river with Balafaseke, watching torches light the roads behind them. Kingdom by kingdom, Mande was remembering itself. Bala asked, "What will you do when they are all gathered?" Sundiata looked into the stars. "I will not crown myself king. I will crown the memory of Mande, and I will silence the name of Sumaoro with the voice of the people." In the sacred valley of Dakajalan, where rivers curve like serpent paths and stones remember the blood of kings, the drums fell silent. Only firelight spoke now, and the voices of those who had returned to forge what had never been. A Mande united. Around a circle of carved blackwood chairs, the lords of Do, Tabon, Mema, and Wagadu sat with tension thick in the smoke. At the center stood Sundiata, robed in deep red, staff in hand. Behind him, Balafaseke held the great kora of memory, its strings ready to echo truth or wrath. Mansa Konate of Wagadu slammed his fist on the stone table. "You speak of unity, Sundiata, but unity does not feed men. It takes grain to march, iron to fight. What have you brought besides riddles and myths?" Sundiata stepped forward calmly. "I bring what Sumaoro cannot kill, ancestral purpose. You fear him because he commands spirits and slaughters kings. But I have walked with the wind, learned the chants of the griots, and touched the sand where our forefathers fell. And from it I rise, not to be king of kings, but servant of Mande." The room stilled. Only the crackle of fire dared answer. Then Nenefa of Mema, old and scarred, muttered, "He speaks as the lion does before it pounces, quiet, full of fire." Balafaseke rose and spoke the ancient proverb of alliance. When the elephant and the buffalo drink from the same stream, they do not speak of horns, but of thirst. A blacksmith from Du entered the circle, placing a slab of iron on the altar. Each chief was handed a dagger carved from their land's own ore. With a solemn chant, they drove their blades into the iron slab, crossing paths like a star. "This is not oath of kings," said Sundiata. "This is oath of peoples. If I fall, let the fight continue without me. Let Mande live beyond the lion." The griot chanted, "From this day, your spears speak not for pride, but for the child who dreams in silence, for the ancestor who waits to return, for the land that remembers who it is." And the flames burned blue. But far behind the circle, in a tent of red silk and veiled words, a whisper moved. Tunkara, a chief from the southern riverlands, sat sharpening a blade. He spoke not with warriors, but with a man cloaked in soso silks. "Sundiata believes all who kneel are loyal," the cloaked man hissed. "He forgets. Loyalty can be bought with fear." Tunkara narrowed his eyes. "And if I play both sides?" The Soso agent smiled. "Then you will eat no matter who dies." That night, Sundiata dreamed. He walked across scorched earth. Bones whispered beneath his feet. In the sky, Ma'angala, the divine order, formed in clouds and thunder. "The path you walk has no map," "Only memory," said a voice like wind through bronze. Suddenly, a lion appeared, chained at the neck, bloodied, its roar silenced. From the shadows came a child with a flute. The child played, and the chains turned to flame, burning away. The lion rose. "You are not bound by blood or blade," the voice said. "You are bound by the memory of freedom." Sundiata awoke with tears in his eyes. He whispered, "Let the drum sound. Let the lion's war begin." In every tale of rising kingdoms, there is one who smiles while holding the torch, not to light the way, but to burn the path behind. The army of Mande marched in silence at dawn. Flags from 5 kingdoms rippled in the wind: red for Du, green for Taban, gold for Mima, obsidian for Wagadu, and indigo for Niani. In the front rode Sundiata, flanked by Kamori, the hunter, and Nenefa of Mema. "Why do the birds fly east today?" Kamori asked, watching the sky. "That is no omen of war." Sundiata's jaw tightened. "Because something has already begun." Far behind, Tunkara, the chief who swore loyalty with his blade, rode apart from the others. At his side, hidden beneath cloth, rode a Soso spy, delivering messages to the war camps of Sumaoro by night. As Sundiata's caravan reached the crossing at Faleme, horns sounded. From the cliffs above, spears rained down like divine anger. Arrows blackened the sun. "Ambush!" cried Balafaseke. "To arms! To arms! The pact is tested." Warriors of Wagadu and Du rushed forward, but the path had been betrayed, their flank wide open. Kamori raised his hunting horn and chanted, "The leopard may be seen, but the snake must be smelled." Sundiata leapt from his horse and raised the staff of his father, the lion-headed rod that only the bloodline of Niani could wield. "Form the shield wall. Let the traitor reveal himself in blood." Flames erupted as archers loosed arrows dipped in oil and fire. Warriors screamed. The river ran dark, but the people of Mande did not break. Sundiata fought like a whirlwind, his cloak burning at the edges, his voice roaring above the chaos. "This is not the end. This is the proving." After the chaos, the wounded lay on mats. Bala Faseke returned with a broken dagger, the same Tunkara had placed in the Pact of Iron. "It was not struck in honor," Bala said. "It was struck in shadow." Kamori placed the blade into Sundiata's hand. "What will you do with betrayal?" Sundiata stared at the blood-stained iron and spoke softly. "Forgive the man. Destroy the purpose." That night, Sundiata sent a rider to Tunkara's camp. The man was brought forward in chains. "You were once a brother," Sundiata said before the assembled chiefs. "But when your loyalty became currency, you broke not just our pact, you cracked the memory of Mande." Tunkara begged. He promised peace, gold. He said you would lose. Sundiata nodded. "I may yet, but I will not sell my soul for peace. And if Mande must die, it will die standing." With a nod, Tunkara was banished, his name removed from the griot songs. In Mande, to be forgotten was the deepest punishment. By morning, the wounded were healed, the dead buried with honor. A new silence grew, not of fear, but of resolve. Balafaseke whispered, "Suma Oro sent a snake. We returned it with fire." Sundiata looked west. "Then let us ride into the storm, not as chiefs, not as tribes, but as the soul of a people rekindled." And so, the Lion's War marched onward, not broken, but forged.
The roots remember what the leaves forget. Malinka proverb. The night air was thick with the scent of baobab and burning incense. In the sacred grove near Kangaba, beneath a sky dusted with starlight, Sundiata stood barefoot in the red earth. His warriors waited beyond the trees, but this moment was not for them. This was for his mother. The circle of griots had gathered, Elder women of the village moved among them, scattering powdered kola nut and whispering invocations. Kamari knelt beside a calabash bowl carved with ancestral symbols. Inside burned white ash mixed with shea and sacred herbs. Sundiata stepped forward, gripping the amulet his mother had left him. He knelt. A hush fell. "Sogolon Kedju," Kamori intoned, voice rising with power. "Mother of the lion, you who bore the burden of exile and the promise of a nation, come forth in spirit. Your son calls upon your strength." Suddenly the wind shifted. The fire sputtered, then surged. The leaves rustled with no cause. A luminous warmth passed through the grove. Sundiata's eyes closed. In the darkness behind his lids, he saw her, not the withered figure who died in exile, but the fierce woman of his childhood, tall, wrapped in indigo cloth, eyes bright with unyielding love. "My son," her voice rang deep within him, "you have crossed the desert of grief. Now you must climb the mountain of judgment. You carry not only your father's blood but my will. The fate of Mali walks with your shadow." He trembled, tears welled. "Will I be enough, mother? You are not alone." The vision faded. Silence returned. Kamori stood slowly, eyes wide. "She came," he whispered. "Sogolon's spirit came." The griots began to chant, low and rhythmic. "Dofanga, power of the womb. From womb to warrior, the lion walks. From sorrow, the kingdom shall rise." The next day, Sundiata emerged, changed. His men noticed it first in the way he gripped his spear, not as a weapon, but as an extension of something sacred. He walked with greater stillness, as if the soil beneath him had given him permission to rule. The time had come. With envoys already traveling to the Soso-held cities, it was clear Sumaoro suspected rebellion. Spies returned with reports. Sumaoro had fortified his iron palace and summoned his dark priests. He had begun crucifying dissenters and setting fire to the shrines of rival chiefs. But Sundiata no longer feared him. He would not simply raise an army. He would awaken a nation. Sincut, Council of Resistance, Kamori, Fakoli, and Nenefa. In a hidden chamber beneath the council hut, leaders of the resistance gathered. Candles flickered against mud brick walls painted with ancient symbols. Maps made of bark parchment lay across a drumstone table. Fakoli raised his voice. "We can strike his iron fortress from the east if we sever the supply lines through Keita." Kamori disagreed. "No, Sundiata must be seen rallying the people. Let them see the lion walking among them before we draw the sword." Nenefa's gaze burned. "Sumaoro is not a man. He is a shadow wrapped in skin. We will need more than blades." Kamori nodded slowly. "We have Sundiata. That is more than enough." Sundiata entered the chamber. He did not speak. He placed a single carved ebony lion figure on the map, right where Sumaoro's palace sat. "The lion does not chase rats," he said calmly. "He hunts the serpent. A single tree cannot make a forest." Malinka proverb. The drums of Kangaba no longer beat in mourning. They now summoned chiefs, warriors, and sacred seers from every corner of the Mande heartland. Beneath the ceiba trees, pacts were made with hand and blood. Sundiata rode from village to village, not as a prince in exile, but as a lion awakened. He entered Niani flanked by the griot Balafaseke and the hunter leaders of Do. In the town square, he raised his spear high and called upon the ancestors. "Let the children of Mangala remember the covenant of the earth. The land that bore us shall not be ruled by tyranny. I call upon the houses of Konate, Do, Keita, and beyond. Let us rise as one drum." From the crowd, an elder griot sang, "Sundiata is the word that walks. His steps echo Sogolon's sorrow. His shadow carries Nare's crown." The people responded in unison, chanting a traditional Malinke war invocation. Kafonyogonye. Let the word be one. Kata. Let us go. Across the plains of Mali, the message spread like fire through dry brush. Blacksmiths forged spears of iron and amulets inscribed with sacred glyphs. Hunters anointed their arrows with bitter herbs and lion's blood. Women ground shea and mixed ceremonial clay to mark the warriors with the blessings of the earth. Far away in the dark palace of Soso, Sumaoro Kante sat on a throne carved from the skulls of fallen kings, surrounded by smoke and silence. His eyes glowed with unnatural fire as he gazed into a bowl of obsidian water. The visions troubled him. "The lion walks again," he growled, "and the spirits whisper his name." He turned to his priest slaves, cloaked in jackal pelts and painted with ash. "Bind the mouths of the winds, mute the griots, curse their drums, let no more stories rise in his name." They bowed, chanting in a forgotten tongue, summoning shadows that crept along the walls like oil. Back in the Mande lands, under a crimson sunset, 4 chiefs met atop the sacred hill of Dakajalan: Fakoli, Kamori, Nenefa, and the warrior queen Diaka of Do. Each brought with them a symbol of allegiance: a lion's tooth, a hunter's bow, a calabash of sacred water, and a scroll of ancestral law. Kamori raised the lion's tooth. "This land has known silence long enough." Diaka planted the bow in the soil. "Let Sumaoro taste the fury of the women," he mocked. Nenefa poured the water, the spirit's thirst for justice. Fakoli placed the scroll. "Then let us write the end of his reign in blood and truth." They each cut their palms, letting the blood mix upon the lion tooth, sealing the pact of the 4 hills. That night, Sundiata dreamed of a lion leaping across a burning field, its mane woven with starlight. Behind it, a serpent coiled, eyes glowing like fire, rising from a tower of bones. The lion did not roar, it bowed its head and breathed flame. He awoke before dawn, heart pounding. Kamori stood waiting by the door. "The seers say the signs are clear," Kamori said. "Sumaoro moves at the next full moon." Sundiata gripped his spear. "Then the lion must strike before the serpent coils." Dark clouds gathered over the plains of Teke. The grass whispered of war. Even the trees stood still, as if the ancestors paused to watch. War drums rolled like distant thunder. Sundiata stood, feet planted in the red earth of his ancestors. His armor was lion hide bound with gold thread, his staff carved from sacred wood. Around him, warriors from the 12 kingdoms of Mande had gathered, hunters, horsemen, griots, freed slaves, all bearing memory, like armor. "This is not just a battle," Sundiata said. "This is our return." Beside him, Jeli Kuyate lifted his voice. "From exile rises the child of prophecy. From silence the drum returns. Let the earth remember. Let Mande remember." Across the valley, Sumaoro Kante appeared, cloaked in crimson silk, a vulture perched on his shoulder. His voice rolled like smoke. "Fools, you gather to die. The spirits obey me." Behind him stood an army bound by fear, warriors wrapped in charms, their eyes hollow. Winds howled as sorcery darkened the sky. Sundiata's cavalry charged, war horses clad in gold, javelins flew, shields collided. Screams rose with the dust. Sumaoro raised his hand. Fire leapt through the air, but the griots of Mande sang louder, drowning fear. "Fasa, son of the lion, Fasa, heir of flame, your word is the drum." Sundiata fought at the front, his staff breaking blades, moving like river wind. But Sumaoro remained untouched, his body cloaked in invincibility. Through the chaos came Fakoli Kante, blood streaked across his face. His power comes from a fetish, a black feather soaked in cursed blood, hidden in his shrine. Sundiata nodded. "Then the storm ends tonight." He slipped into the forbidden temple carved into stone. The air reeked of rot, skulls lined the walls, princes and griots who had opposed the king. At the center, the fetish, a feather, pulsing, whispering. "Your reign ends here," he said, crushing it in his palm. A scream tore through the wind. On the field, Sumaoro staggered. His magic faded. He turned, and and saw Sundiata approaching. "Your spirits have left you," said the lion. "Now face Mande." They clashed, steel against staff, sorcery against spirit. Sumauro, I ruled before you were born. Sundiata, you ruled by fear, I lead by memory. One final strike. The war staff shattered Sumauro's sword and drove him down. Atop the tamarind hill the clans gathered. The sky cleared. Women wept. Elders raised their hands. Sundiata stood not as conqueror, but as son returned. I vowed to Mangala, to justice, to memory. The people are my crown. He laid down the Mandan Charter, honoring women, condemning slavery, calling for peace. The griots wept. The people danced, and the drums returned. This was the age of prophecy, the age of the lion. Let no child forget.
You have walked the sands with the lion. You have seen the fire passed from mother to son, from exile to empire, from silence to legend. But know this, a story untold is a story soon forgotten. If the flame moved within you, then pass it on. Let your kin and kindred feel what you have felt. Let the drums of this tale echo across every village, every timeline, every feed. Strike the seal of the griots by pressing subscribe, that this lineage of truth may continue, that the stories of the Black Kingdom shall not be buried under foreign tongues, and share this flame. For the ancestors do not whisper to only one. They call for many, and should your spirit still hunger, the sacred book lies waiting in the description below. Reclaim it, hold it, let the story be yours. FactorIt Media. The truth was never lost. It was hidden. Subscribe, share, discover the book below.